Today, a Metro lieutenant took part in a nationwide effort to make an 11-year-old's dream come true. Devar J. Daniel, or DJ, is battling brain cancer and is on a mission to join as many law enforcement agencies as possible. Lieutenant Jesse Roble recently took part in a swearing-in ceremony at the FBI Academy in Virginia. More than 50 other agencies also made him an honorary officer.
Ultimately, DJ wants to be sworn in by 758 agencies across the country. And that number is significant because it was the honorary badge number for another child, Abigail Arias, who passed away at 7 from DJ's same condition. DJ says his goal is to keep her memory alive while spreading awareness for childhood cancers.